Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a special bonus episode edition of Senior Living Today. Some of you may have noticed when we launched season 2 that we've had a change in our name and also a change in our look. So today I'm joined by our COO and CEO to talk about those changes, why they were made, and how our organization has evolved over the years. Scott, Steve, thank you both for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Scott, I know you've been on the podcast a few times before, but for any of our new listeners, would you mind introducing yourself, how long you've been with the organization, and what your role is here?
I am Scott Buchanan. I've been here 10 years, and I'm the CEO.
And Steve, I believe this is your first time joining us on the show, so would you like to introduce yourself for our listeners?
Sure. I am the rookie. I am Steve Petitjean. I currently serve as the Chief Operating Officer for the period of about 4 months, and I've been at the home for about Ohio Masonic Communities for about 6 years.
So before we discuss our new look and the new operating name, let's talk about some of the history that we have in our organization. So Steve, would you like to talk about the history of the Ohio Masonic Home and how we've come where we are today?
Certainly. It was an idea that was generated probably in the mid-1800s and finally came to fruition when they laid the first cornerstone here to our Bushnell Hall in 1892. I had our first residents move in 1895. And then for a period of time from the late 1890s to 1956, it also became a home for not only master masons returning from war and their wives, widows, and children, but it also became a children's home. So until 1956, opening into the greater community in the 1990s. Then we went on to expand and made a couple other purchases as we became the Ohio Masonic Communities over time. And we purchased a property in Waterville, Ohio. And we also have a property now in Medina, Ohio. So really 3 campuses, the Browning, the Western Reserve, and the Springfield Masonic Communities are really 60% of what make up our Ohio Masonic Communities.
And then we also have the Ohio Masonic Communities Resource Center and the Ohio Masonic Communities Foundation. Scott or Steve, would one of you want to talk about those?
Yeah, as far as the Resource Center is our outreach, and it's really to look at folks wanting to stay at home. When you look at, and that's what it really intrigued me to come here, was that we could make a difference and there would be continuity of care. And, folks have a life event and it turns very quickly and they decide, wow, I'm going to have nursing care or assisted living. Well, we wanted to make sure we had a way for folks to stay at home if they could and bring that care to them or bring those services to them. So we started the Resource Center, and that allows us to have arms around everybody in the state. And they can make a call to a 1-800 number, and we'll dispatch somebody to look at their social, clinical, and financial needs, which allows us to keep them in their home. And we've got countless stories of individuals that, they've always been told in lodge or in passing that, when you need help, you have to move into the home. Well, that's not the case. We can keep you at home with close to your church, your lodge, your family. And that's a huge win for everybody. And it's been a huge win for us. And then when they're ready to move here and they want to live their best lives, they can move in. And they can move in because they want to, not because they have to.
And then Steve, could you talk a little bit about the foundation?
I would love to. So as you know, I started the foundation back in June of 17. And really the full purpose of the foundation was created in 95, 96 was to really kind of develop a fundraising program to help support all the work that we do on the campuses, as well as through the Resource Center and our charities. And it seems odd that you say the foundation is the foundation, but it is the rock that really kind of allows us to get done what we need to get done and delivering our charity. So it's really important and vital to the work that we do.
So now we can get into some of the exciting changes that have happened with our name and logo. Scott, can we first start with the name and talk about why we made the pivot from the Ohio Masonic Home to the Ohio Masonic Communities? We
brought a group in to kind of really help us assess, looking at internally and externally at what folks see when they see us. What do they see in the entity? And for years, the point Steve made a minute ago about for years it was for Masons only, then we opened it up to the public. Well, there's a lot of stigma in the community about even today that folks think we're asset surrender, and they also think that we are not open to the community. So there's also through especially the last 5 years, a lot of stigma around the word home and the word nursing home especially. So we listened to our constituents. We did some focus groups with board members, the community, city and national leaders, and try to wrap our heads around what best serves us. Communities is what we are. We serve the community at large through the Resource Center. We serve the communities around our campuses. We're very active in those communities, and we serve our communities on each campus. They are a community. So we have varying services. So it's not just an independent living facility or assisted living. We have everything. So we are a community of our own. So that's where the communities came from versus the Ohio Masonic Homes. So from here forward, we will be the Ohio Masonic Communities.
So let's talk about the logo, because we did add the square and compasses back into the roots of the logo. Can you talk a little bit about that change and why that was made?
Yes, we had gone through some branding about 5 years ago, took the square and compass out, and tried to use the tree, which is an acacia tree, which has lots of ties to masonry, and talk about being rooted in masonry. But really, the square and compass is the most identifiable symbol of our Masonic fraternity. And we wanted to put that back in because it does symbolize rooted in our Masonic values, which is part of our mission, vision, values statements and case statement. We are rooted in those. We're always going to filter everything through those, and that's why it's important to be seen in the logo.
So in addition to the name change and the logo change, we've also changed our mission statement. Steve, would you like to talk about the new mission statement and what that represents for our organization?
Certainly. It's really simply stated, and all that we do is we try to live our Masonic values in an effort to become the trusted partner to really help our communities thrive. And when we talk about helping communities thrive, it's really about how do we meet, certainly the senior living community, how do we meet them where they are? So whether it's a health need, whether it's a psychosocial need, whether it's a medical, physical need, whether it's just a financial need, we try to meet them where they are so we can help those communities, the greater community, thrive.
So I know we've mentioned our Masonic values and how we added the square and compasses back into our logo. So what all does that mean for the general public who may not understand Freemasonry or what our organization was founded in?
Well, the square and compass, I can tell you what the square and compass mean. The square is, and the compasses together have a meaning of live within your means, live within your bounds, and so that you can help others, right? That's kind of what those two symbols mean. We don't talk about the G a whole lot. That's some of that secrecy in Masonry. But when you look at those two symbols together, everybody knows that's Freemasonry, right? It gets back to what Steve talked about. It gets back to the values of Freemasonry and how we treat each other and taking care of each other, and the obligation that we take as Masons to take care of everyone. And that's exactly what we're here to do. Simply
put, Alexander, if I can expand upon that, is that people always wonder what it's about. But to be a Mason, in my opinion, I'm a newer Mason, only 4.5 years, is simply to try to become the best version of yourself so that you can help other people become the best version of themselves.
So let's talk about our new tagline, because that changed as well. Our new tagline is Today, Tomorrow, Together. How is that meaningful to the Ohio Masonic communities, and how does that represent what we do every day?
Really, it's to what Steve said a minute ago. Looking back in the journey that we went through to develop the current mission, vision, values, we've evolved over 136 years at this point. And through that evolution, those gentlemen and ladies that set out and set the course originally had a mission, right? And that became home. We went all the way back to those minutes to put us on that journey. So what we're doing is making sure, are we living what we're set out to do, but also changing with the times. We've evolved, right? We're doing things today that other CCRCs don't even have a concept that exists, right? There are things that we're doing in some of our care levels, like assisted living dementia care and our skilled nursing that other folks don't even have in those areas. So that allows us to be ahead and be mindful of where we came from and the journey that we're on.
So Scott, you mentioned the term CCRC. Can you explain to our listeners what that stands for?
It means Continuing Care Retirement Community, but it's really more about a continuum of care. So you have all levels of care between independent living, assisted living, skilled, and we have assisted living and skilled dementia. So it's the full gamut of services in one place.
I know that this process does take some time to roll out. And can you talk a little bit about when we can expect to see all these changes made? I know we still have some old signage on campus. So just kind of explain how long that process will take for...
With any branding process, you push the message out first, and it's always a lot later to get new shirts printed or signs on the buildings or even the individual units rebranded. So it will take us some time over the next few years. As you know, we have projects slated. We just put a project in the ground at Western Reserve. It was $55 million expansion. So that'll get branded as it goes. We're looking at Springfield next. We've got a large project planned here in the next few years. We're just trying to time the market and look at where things are and make sure the timing makes sense. But we'll start to rebrand those things as we go. So it'll happen over a few years. It won't happen automatically. But what you see on our website and print materials and anything that we push out will have the new logo and everything on it.
And Scott speaks mostly to the physical nature of the physical changes. As important, I think, as we continue in our journey, is we got to continue to communicate to the greater public what exactly is it that we do, because we believe that we are differentiated in the services we provide, the quality of care, certainly our work in memory care. And as we help to meet people where they are, we get that message out. They become less confused, or we become less misunderstood, if you will, relative to that Masonic symbol that you see in our logo.
Right, and it's through our actions, right? It's not always through what we say, it's through what we do.
So what else exciting is on the horizon for the Ohio Masonic communities?
Well, we talked a little bit about the project at Western Reserve. We have that in the ground. It's doing very well. We have 56 new independent living apartments and the first 2/3 of a brand new state-of-the-art skilled unit set. We had, during the pandemic, I hate using that word now, but back in 20, that's what we were doing. Alongside trying to make sure everybody was taken care of, we didn't stop looking at the future. We planned that development. It's now come to fruition, most of it. And at the same time, this last 2 years, we've been working on master plans for the other 2 campuses. So the next big probably thing you'll see is us starting to reposition the Springfield campus. We've done a lot of work at Browning to revitalize the inside of the building, dining room, and we also have plans for that campus. So we're constantly moving to make sure we're going to be able to meet the expectations of our fraternity and those that need us in the next 10 to 15, 20 years. So there's a lot planned. I don't want to give too much away, but we're well on our way. And we're also looking at how do we stay ahead. My job is to stay about 1.5 years ahead of these guys until they tell me to slow down, and keep bringing those ideas back and trying to push those things back through the organization to make sure we do stay ahead. But we have a great team of people, and I think you're going to see a lot evolve through the culture of our organization the next year, as well as, if you look at the feedback we get from our residents, they're living their best lives, having a whole lot of fun. Some of it we don't want to know about, right? But that's kind of who we are.
When you heard Scott talk a little bit about the tomorrow, we talk about our tagline, today, tomorrow, and together. The today really is, always do the right thing, right? And let's always give quality care today. Tomorrow is that innovative outlook. So even though we're a mid-sized not-for-profit, with Scott's leadership, we continue to look outside at what is the next that's going to make us and allow us to kind of deliver that same quality of care into the future. And if you take a look at the new property that he spoke about up at Western Reserve and the MedMiser beds that let you fully ambulate and help our nurses to be in the rooms longer with the client, really the resident that lives with us. Everything that we do is around how do we make it more effective for our employees to have a better work experience, but more importantly, or as importantly, for all of our residents to get the best care that they deserve. And so everything we do is around that. And again, the together piece is simple. We can't do it alone, right? We partner with competitors. We partner with hospitals, doctors, certainly our employees, our staff, our donors. Everybody has to come alongside together for us to kind of deliver what we think is what's the baby boom everybody's been expecting. So how do we meet those growing needs? And right. We do that through that tagline.
And I'd also add that you guys all know from working here, we don't get caught up in titles. We're all in this together. That together means we are all in this together. Residents, our families, all of our employees' families, all of us. That's important because we're looking at it through a different lens, right? We're not looking at it through a lens from corporate to the communities. It's all of us together trying to figure out how do we do this the best way and let everybody live their best lives in our communities.
Well, I want to thank you both again for joining me today for this special bonus episode and explaining some of those changes that were made and why they were made. Thank you again to our listeners for tuning in, and we will be back again next week with our regularly scheduled episodes.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.